Hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm somewhat of a nobody in the Ghost of Tabor community. I started this YouTube channel doing gameplay videos of Ghost of Tabor because when I started playing it about a year ago, I fell in love with the idea of an escape from Tarkov in VR. I'm still making videos, but I took a break from Ghost of Tabor to play more Tarkov because it has ever been slowly coming into a better state, and I just love that game. And for those of you who don't know much about Escape from Tarkov, it is literally what Ghost of Tabor was based off of. Almost everything about the gameplay loop is similar to Tarkov, with the going into raid, PvPvE, extraction, looter shooter. Tarkov essentially pioneered this subgenre of first-person shooters, and after 9 years is still on top as one of the greatest representations of it there has been so far. Because I've been playing so much Tarkov lately, I have realized more and more about what makes the game so great, and what Ghost of Tabor should almost certainly implement to touch on some of the greatness Escape from Tarkov has created for itself, but as a VR title. Also, I'd like to talk about things they should do to differentiate themselves from Tarkov that would be important, being that it is a separate project and a VR one at that. I really do feel like my opinions and ideas matter here, being that I've been to every single Ghost of Tabor AMA and I'm a part of both theirs and Escape from Tarkov's Twitters and Discords. I actively follow both of these games on a day-to-day basis, so I probably have more knowledge on both of them and their development cycle collectively than most people, which honestly brings me to a lot of things Ghost of Tabor is just doing right. And I almost feel like this is in spite of Tarkov, because the devs have seen what pitfalls Tarkov has and they actively fix it, which is a lot more than I can say for Tarkov. Cheaters, for example, has plagued Tarkov and has for many years made the game unplayable. Ghost of Tabor is building their game from the ground up with anti-cheat development in mind, so players don't have a completely ruined experience. Now, there's a lot to say on the topic of comparing both games from the community's perspective, so to keep the video as short as I can, I will just go over gameplay features / balancing ideas to overall increase the quality of Ghost of Tabor's experience and longevity the game can have overall. I would also like to split the video up into 2 sections that would help build my ideas around what would make this game so good, using Tarkov as a tool, by doing the first half about ideas that Tarkov has already done that Ghost of Tabor should most certainly adopt, and the second half about new ideas that will help differ the game from Tarkov and also utilize VR's ability of physical movement that flat screens just don't have. Things like breaking scavs necks physically in VR, weird thing to say, is an absolute hilarious and immersive example of this, and I believe that type of creativity could help Tabor dominate not only VR but in the extraction shooter space altogether and absolutely be a market mover. I'll start with a few things that Ghost of Tabor can take from Tarkov, because there has been many games before Ghost of Tabor that have tried to do what Tarkov is doing and fell completely flat on their faces. I happened to be there when many of those games came out, played them, and ultimately just went back to Tarkov because some of the key things worth mentioning here. Again, starting with features Tarkov already has and what Ghost of Tabor may likely implement in the future, I believe one of the most important things Tarkov does that Ghost of Tabor should focus on is modular weapons. One key aspect of extraction shooters is their focus on customizable guns, and realistic ones at that. In Ghost of Tabor, you can mod your gun from scopes to tactical devices, grips, silencers, and a single dovetail mount for AK type weapons. In Tarkov, on the other hand, you can modify muzzles, handguards, rails, barrels, charging handles, buttstocks, pistol grips, and a variety of adapters and accessories for your weapon that all affect recoil and ergonomics to a ridiculous degree of freedom and customization. Not only that, but Ghost of Tabor only has 3 ammo types for each caliber: full metal jacket, tracer, and armor piercing. In Tarkov, this ranges from things like dummy round, subsonic, hollow point, and so much more for a single caliber, as well as different types of armor piercing for different levels of flesh damage depending on your preferred setup and playstyle. The second most important thing Ghost of Tabor needs to improve is AI difficulty, and AI enemy types. This is highly important due to it solving multiple problems this game has, unfortunately. One of them being naked runners. In Escape from Tarkov, if you load into a raid with nothing to lose for the reason of rushing high value loot spawns, you are certainly asking for a quick death. Loading into a raid in Tarkov with nothing to defend yourself with is a death sentence because of how difficult the AI can be in that game. Also, loading into a raid with nothing or just a pistol activates a function in the game called Tagged and Curse. This is when scavs and other AI know where you are at all times and actively try and kill you. Also, the longer you're in a raid, the harder the AI becomes, making survival more difficult as you move through the map trying to hoover every piece of valuable loot item you can. Multiple AI types with different playstyles make the world far more immersive and interesting. The chance of running into bots with stronger weapons, gear, and ammo make these encounters a blessing and a curse, depending on how well you can play, making the game so much more dynamic. Another thing I have to talk about is lore. Tarkov started its development with a clear vision in mind when it came to lore, and I believe it has truly helped them shape the world they have built. They knew this because of the Stalker games it was based off of, and how important the story was to the cult success of that game. The fact that Ghost of Tabor has made this such an afterthought surprises me. Lore can be such a large part of an experience and subconsciously immerses you while you play. Do you hear me, Combat Waffle Studios? Hire me. I will fucking write the whole thing for you if you'll have me. I work for clout, so it's basically free for you. This brings me to the final aspect of what Tarkov does so well that Ghost of Tabor will probably have the hardest time getting right, and that is map design. What Ghost of Tabor has now is certainly fine for a competitive shooter, but the specific thing I'm talking about is the absolute immersion factor that Escape from Tarkov has in theirs. If you've played Tarkov, you will certainly know what I mean in ways of the graphics, sound effects, and storytelling they do so well in every area you go into. This helps build more meaning into doing quests as you move through the map and discover an unsettling world left there for you to explore as you fight for your life against AI and other players. There is really nothing quite like it in any other game. Because Ghost of Tabor is in VR, this does inherently address factors such as immersion, but is a double-edged sword because of the technological restraints of standalone VR headsets. Now, this final point I just went over brings me to a fairly bold idea I would like to share here, and I would love to know the thoughts of you and the developers themselves in the comment section below. Remember what I said about technological restraints of our current standalone headsets? This only exists due to one thing, and that is essentially money. What if I were to tell you we have the tools and technology to make a game far greater than Escape from Tarkov with all of its realistic graphics and game design and still do it in VR? Well, you'd have to believe me because it's true. The only reason developers are held back by the fidelity of VR is because making a PC dedicated VR game would never make enough money to support development of such ambitions due to not enough consumers owning both a PC and VR headset. This really is one of the most tragic things about VR and VR development as a person who loves it, but is tired of looking at the PS2 graphics only standalone headsets can support. The bold idea this brings me to is that Combat Waffle Studios, the developers behind Ghost of Tabor, should use this project to fund the development of this theoretical game I speak of. Anyone who knows the history of Battlestate Games, the developers behind Escape from Tarkov, would know a similar plan has always been the case for Tarkov itself to make a single-player game they always wanted to create called Russia 2028. Ghost of Tabor has already followed many of Tarkov's business ideas, including selling pay-to-win editions of the game that give you better starting gear at the beginning of a wipe. I feel like going down a road of funding a larger, more ambitious project would not be a hard plan to conceive. Doing it, on the other hand, is another story. I'd imagine such an undertaking would cost millions and take some of the greatest minds to manifest into reality. At this point, I do really hope someone from the development team for Ghost of Tabor is listening, is just thinking, hold my beer. Anyway, now that we've got some of the theoretical stuff out of the way, I'm quickly going to mention other things Ghost of Tabor is working on and or should add to the game in quick succession. For 1, audio needs work. 2, better ragdoll and death animations. 3, scopes need a little work, fellas. Make them believable. 4, I know tech restraints are holding you back, but graphics. 5, you need a day-night cycle. 6, lean peaking. 7, please add legging people, broken and blacked out limbs that stop you from running or aiming that you need special healing items for should still be considered in Ghost of Tabor. 8, big maps. The CEO of Tabor stated everyone just runs silo, but the poll presented in the Discord a few months back highly suggests otherwise, with Island, the biggest map in the game, overwhelmingly being the most popular, and I do agree. Make the game it's intended to be and have bigger, more open maps. And this brings me to number 9, dedicated maps similar to labs in Tarkov where you need valuable items to enter for better loot, but the AI needs to be cracked. High risk, high reward. Something like this could be done with a map that goes to another after a set amount of time in raid. Imagine after 20 minutes on Island, the doors to an underground labs facility opens up and you are loaded into another raid. A complicated idea to implement for a game like this, but would be so cool for the adventure it would take you on. Number 11 would be make it so bodies don't disappear. I know this is an optimization thing, but this is one of the most offensive things to realism. Alright, so part 2 of this video is going to be pretty short because innovating a game like this will have mostly been covered in part 1. Bringing any massive ideas to this genre would either make or break the premise almost like having vehicles or skilled-based matchmaking, which is the dumbest idea ever. So I want to touch on ones that I think would truly improve the experience, and also some that would be dedicated to VR functionality. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments about cool ideas you would have for this, or even join the Discord and discuss this directly with the community as well as myself. I'll leave a link for that in the description section down below. Starting off with being able to grab and carry weapons and items in different spots on the model. I think it would be cool, and I'm sure there are creative ways people could use this feature in a game like this. Also, being able to mount your weapon on walls and surfaces a little better than we have it currently would be a nice quality of realism. Hazard zones that require specialized equipment like gas masks or rad suits for you to be able to explore for special quests and items in game is something Tarkov is not and maybe will not do. Needing special lead containers to collect expensive radioactive material would be very interesting as well. Vaulting and climbing is something a lot of games have, but I think we can all agree is very immersive in VR, and in Ghost of War would be an awesome thing to have. The healing animations like fixing broken limbs and doing surgery would be freaking awesome. Not only would you need special healing items for different kinds of wounds like in Tarkov, but you'd also have to have the know-how of what to do when it came to stapling or splinting. Propane tanks as lootable items in-game for hideout crafting, but instead of them being like any other item, they can be shot and blown up. I think it would be really cool to have other lootable items that react to the in-game environment like this also. More explosions equal more fun. And honestly, I can't really think of any more at this point in time, which is a shame because having a game like this in VR is so unique, and I feel like I am just missing some low-hanging fruit when it comes to cool ideas. So again, please let me know your thoughts down below and join the Discord for more discussions on this topic. I would love to know what all of you think.